gang. Waiting for my little progress wheel to stop progressing, shall we say. And so I'll give it just a minute before I say anything important. In the meantime, I'll just say silly things. Hello, welcome. So I'm still working on book illustrations. It turns out there are going to be 47 illustrations in the book and an illustration on the front cover. So that's a pretty good job. Very thankful for it, and I'm having a good time. Although, of course, being a human being, I'm prone to, complain? The other thing I have complained about is like, oh man, I'm not getting to paint very much. Yeah, shut up. So you're being paid to do artwork. That's a pretty good deal. So that's what I'm telling myself. I was with you yesterday. I showed you some of the early stages of some of these illustrations. So let me just go through some of them. There's a young man being attacked by a bear while the girl from the tree watches above. Here's a little boy riding on a manta ray skate. Hello, hi person. Osbiddy. Here's a extraordinary event happening in front of a cabin. There's a bad guy. I don't have to show you all these. I want to talk more about the process. So these are all pencil sketches. That's obvious, I guess. This one I had to actually tweak in Photoshop. This one needs a little bit of work. I think the young man in this one looks a little bit too young. So I'm going to come in here and put just a little bit of peach fuzz on his face, a little bit of later in the story, he has a beard. At this stage, he has an almost beard, I guess. So not sure exactly how I'm going to indicate that. Also, this forearm is a little bit fat. You know, these are all the kinds of changes. And as you know, this was the sketch just previous to the one that I showed you. This was probably sketch number 1. Then turn it over, sketch number 2, erased sketch number 1, then come back and traced on my table. I've shown you all that many times. So that's how I do my rough sketches, is by using a light table and each time seeing a mirror image. That really helps when you're doing faces to make things symmetrical. If you try to draw human faces and you don't know the mirror trick, you are almost guarantee you are screwing up. When you're doing human faces, you must, one way or another, either with a light table or with a mirror or with your phone, see a mirror image. Here's a fun one that's very different from all the others. A lot of architecture, which of course I enjoy doing, and so on. Now here's another one that's very different from the others. This is the only one so far that's been a real close-up of anatomy. So for that one, I ran downstairs, grabbed my 30-something-year-old daughter, said, Alicia, let me take a picture of your arm. So I took a picture and almost traced it, but not quite. When I did this, I realized, well, of course, I'm getting a little bit too much foreshortening. Her hand's too big. The other thing is she has my hands and her mom's hands, both. And both my wife and I have hands more given to work and playing musical instruments than we do to ballet. So I made this hand a little more ballet-ish. Okay, so that's some of the pencil sketches. I think there's 9 there that I've done in the last day. I've got a few more to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more in the works, not counting the front cover. Let's go to this one right now just for fun, and I'll let you watch over my shoulder while I go through the process. Yeah, so this is my first rough sketch. And I did this in the presence of my client. We meet over coffee every week, and I do the first initial sketch just to make sure we're on, generally speaking, the right track. So here's this girl in this scene. I think she's about 14 or 15 years old, and she's walking along a very narrow trail on a cliff wall. So literally, to get by this impasse, you have to virtually hug the wall with your nose right to the wall. And so she's doing that, and lo and behold, while she's doing that, a snake, poisonous snake, sticks its head out of a hole above her, which actually she was paralyzed with fear because of the long drop behind her. She was paralyzed with fear until the snake gave her something else more immediate to fear, and then that got her moving along. So that's part of the story there. So I want to indicate this is a rock face, rock wall, and I'm utilizing quite a bit of foreshortening in this sketch. I want this hand to be quite a bit bigger, and I'm not very happy with that snake's head. And of course, yes, I know that a poisonous snake has a triangular shaped head or diamond shaped head. So that is certainly what I want to indicate in this sketch. That's probably good enough for sketch. Now here's the trick. Turn the page over, clean on this side, which means that was my first sketch. And then now I'm seeing everything in reverse, which really helps. I now see her nose is a little bit too big for a 14-year-old girl. Her top lip is a little bit too long. I don't mean her top lip. The distance from her nose to her top lip is too long. With this expression, her top teeth would not be showing, but her bottom teeth might be barely showing. I have a book downstairs. I need to get that and show it to you. It's an artist book where the author spends hundreds of pages examining every kind of facial expression just about you can think of. And let me see, this side of her hat has a feather. I have drawn her hat. Did I show you? No, I didn't show you the finished drawings. Let me take a quick break here real quick. So I showed you some sketches yesterday, and these are the finished pen and ink drawings that grew out of those. Here's the eagle steals her hat. I'm probably going to remove this stuff in Photoshop. Anyway, just to show you what the finished sketches look like. And there's a sketch here somewhere of her hat. Hang on. This is the one if you were with me a couple days ago, I was walking you through the process of drawing that. There's her hat. Okay, her hat becomes like a journal of her adventures in life. With every new major adventure, she adds a thing, an element to her hat. So that's my go by at this point. Okay, so the eagle feathers on the front of her hat is here. So the eagle feathers on the left side of her hat, that's where I've got it. Here she's got a rattlesnake skin around her hat, but this scene right here takes place before the rattlesnake scene, so there's no rattlesnake, it's just a regular band. But she does have a bear's tail tucked in, etc., etc. So all these details, and I keep going to my client who wrote the book and making sure that I've got the chronology right for all these things. Now, how old is she in this scene, and what's on her hat in this scene, and what kind of cane does she have in this and that, and this and that. So again, we're looking up her sleeve, so to speak, and her hand is fairly large. By the way, she's also, because of her handicap, she broke her leg. She's a woods, what's the word I'm looking for? Backwoods girl. And she broke her leg, and it was didn't mend correctly. She's essentially a crippled girl from the age of 6 to the age of about 26 when she has an operation and her leg is repaired. But because of her leg disability, she develops quite a bit of upper arm strength, which is evidenced in one of these scenes recently by her swinging on a vine. So when I do draw her hands, I feel free to draw fairly robust, even though they're feminine hands. They're fairly strong and forearm. You know, she's a 15-year-old girl, but she's a fairly well athletically developed, if you will. Again, because of her disability. So all these things, all these considerations go into the, if nothing else, I hope you guys are gaining an appreciation for the work that an illustrator does. These are all the things you have to think about when you're doing an illustration. So that's sketch number 2. Whoops, I didn't finish my snake. But I hate it when that happens. And I probably should Google, and I can't use my phone when I'm broadcasting, so I'll do that when you guys are not looking. Normally I would just grab my phone and Google poisonous snake biting or something like that. Snake tongue sticking out's a good idea, don't you think? And but I can't do that, so there you go. That'll do till I look up the reference for snake. Now, so here's the strategy, or here's the technique. So then I come over here and erase everything on this side of the paper. Now, because I'm using tracing paper, I don't actually I could use a clean piece of paper and, trace onto a clean piece of paper, but I at the moment, I only have 100 sheets of that paper, and even though the pad of paper only costs $10 or $12 or something like that, the trip to the art store cost me nearly an hour. So that I call that $100. So no, it's not worth $100 of my time to go buy a $12 pad of paper. By the way, if you're a professional anything, that is the way you calculate. You don't just say, I'm sorry, this is a digression, but right, you don't just say to yourself, well, this thing only cost me $12. I bought 2 of them so far. No. That costs you $12, but if you have to run to the store to buy another one, now it costs $112. At least that's how much I think my time is worth, is roughly $100 an hour when I'm doing artwork. So that makes it a very expensive pad of paper. So it's worth conserving some. So I erase it, as you see me doing. So this now is sketch number 3. Are you with me? You're getting this technique. I've used it for years. This light table I bought in 1987, 31 years ago, and I used a different one before that. Started using this light table technique in 1977. So that was 41 years ago when I got hooked on the light table technique. There's many other ways to work, but I like it quite a bit. It served me well. And back in the day when I was a cartoonist primarily, you can still see my cartoon work on my website. I did a lot of cartooning, and I used this exact technique extensively when I was doing cartoons. In fact, it's dawned on me two aspects, I guess, of my illustration life have served me well to do book illustrations. One is I've done tons of storyboards for advertising agencies. That's where, like for a commercial, the ad agency wants to show the boss man, the CEO of the company, what their commercial is going to look like. So they put together essentially a comic book of the frames, and those frames are called storyboards. Actually, the whole thing is called a storyboard, and it has several frames in it. So I've done probably thousands of storyboards over the decades, and that again, and when you're doing storyboards, you're thinking the same kind of way. What would this person's gestures, what would their face look like, what kind of expression would they have, what kind of hair, what kind of body style would they have, and so on and so on and so on and so forth. Hey, this right here gives me an opportunity to talk about foreshortening. Foreshortening is when you're looking at a long thing longitudinally. You're looking at it not so you can see the length of it, but you're looking straight at it, which we're doing largely here. Just to comment about how to achieve the sense of foreshortening, especially it's quite challenging when it's a little girl's, I'm little, and I already said she's fairly well developed athletically, muscularly. How do you get the sense of foreshortening so it doesn't just look like you made a mistake and made her arm 6 inches long? Well, I've showed you this before, but let's do it again real quick. Okay, you see that mirror? Can you see me in the mirror? Okay, now you see me holding my arm. I'm going to take my glove off. This is one of the things I would do. I would hold my arm like this. Of course, I'm a lot older and I'm a male, so I'm a lot more pronounced, but that actually helps me to see the musculature. Um, there we go. That helps me right there. So it turns out, yes, there is a slight bulge. One of the things I'm looking for. Oh, let me go back to my drawing. Okay, hang on for another wild ride here. Okay, so it turns out I just learned, I was reminded that this muscle right here does form a, when you're looking at it this way, forms a slight bulge that you can see. Now the reason that's important, let me turn off this light for a minute so we're just seeing the drawing I'm working on, is, well, let me draw this. If I want to draw a hose, a tube, and I want the viewer to get the sense that we're looking at a tube. Of course, there's several things that are going to happen. One is it's going to get narrower as it moves away, and it's round at this end. Those two things give us a little bit of the feeling that we're looking at a tube, right? But not completely, because we could be looking at like a gourd. See, this head looks like it's disappearing too. This looks like a gourd. There's the, right? Are you with me? So this could be a cut off part of a gourd. So one of the main things that will make us feel like we're seeing a foreshortened view of this is to put, using a term from cartology, from map making, if you put longitudinal lines on this shape, now it's, and especially you could do it in this case even on the inside. So it's extremely obvious. Can you see that? That we're looking at a long thing from the end. So the longitudinal lines are key for conveying the sense of foreshortening. So if there's any way that I can get any excuse, so here I'm not going to show you, but I'm looking at my hand in the mirror again in front of me. Any excuse. Yep. Okay, I'm going to undo this one. Any excuse to get longitudinal lines on this drawing will help convey the sense that we're looking at this girl's arm. That's probably going to have to do it. That mark right there and this one right here. And I learned both of those, was reminded of both of those by looking at my, of course, and the hand is larger. That's just perspective. And of course, I could make the fingers pointing toward us too. Now, on the fingers, there's lots of opportunity for longitudinal lines. I don't know if I want to do this or not. You know, I don't know if I want the fingers foreshortened or want it to look like she's grasping around this rock that's close to us. I sort of think I do. I think the first impulse was the better one here, I think. But I'll shorten the fingers a little bit from what I had, and then include some of these. See, the knuckles create a lot of opportunity for longitude. Do you know what I'm talking about? Longitude. Here's a globe, right? Here's the Earth, right? Here's the United States. Here's Iceland. Here's South America. Okay. I was using the wrong word. After all that, those are the longitudinal lines. These are the latitude lines. Are you with me? So it's really, these are latitudinal lines. I'm sorry, I was using the wrong term. Longitude goes that way. Not that doesn't mess up the concept. I was just using the wrong word. Okay, back to now. Lights on. Let's finish this drawing. So this is the third time I've drawn this snake. She's got her cane. She walks with a cane, and her cane. This cane has a wood carving, essentially a globe carved at the top of it, and inside the globe is a little wooden bird. Why? Because that's what mountain people do. Mountain people whittle, and it's a feat of whittling. I don't know if you know this or not. It's a feat of whittling, to whittle things inside things. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Just Google World Championship Whittling, and you'll see that. Now, these lines are a little too regular right now. There we go. I don't want it to look like a brick wall. I want it to look like a stone wall. But one of the ways to achieve that, the sense of a stone wall, is to do layers, striata, layers of sedimentary rock. That's one of the best ways to indicate. And I do not know I don't know well enough what a snake's nose looks like, and what his bottom jaw looks like, and what their eyes look like. So I will be looking all that up when I finish this broadcast. But I do like the idea of the snake being close enough to do damage. Okay. Now, typically before I finish, I do some shading. So once again, I've switched over to the traditional grip. I have talked about that quite a bit. I don't want to talk about it today. Why I'm a firm believer in the side handle grip of a pencil when you're doing sketches. Firm believer, and sorry, just because your professor in college didn't talk about it doesn't mean I'm wrong. That's a little bit of a rebuttal to some of my friends. The best drawers in history, I contend, all follow I don't mean good drawers, I mean the best drawers, generally speaking, follow my pattern. And just because somebody is a professor at an art school does not mean they're among the best of drawers. I'm not saying I'm among the best of drawers either. I just aspire to be such. Okay, so that just gives me, that's probably enough. I'm going to send, I don't know if this is a diamondback or not. Maybe, might as well be. There's rattlesnakes elsewhere in the story, so I suppose it makes sense for this to be a diamondback rattler. They do live in rocks, I happen to know. I spent 10 years of my adult life living in Texas, and a couple of those years in West Texas, and I know a little bit about rattlesnakes because they certainly lived where we lived at the time. I want to check what would happen if I had included a hint of bottom teeth here. No, I don't think I like it. Here's my smallest eraser at the moment, so I'm going to use that to get rid of those bottom teeth. I like her yelling in surprise, but I don't like her screaming. And the scream, the teeth carry the suggestion of a scream. I'm going to make a point to get this book that I'm talking about that is a marvelous reference tool for artists, where he talks about all the different expressions and what's the difference. Like, a lot of them are quite, you look at it, you go, never thought about that. Like, what's the difference between, if you're looking at a person, here, I'll do it on myself right now. So take my glasses off. If you want my head like this, and I'm reading something, okay, can you see my eyes? I think you can. Okay, what's the difference between this, from your point of view, me reading, and me praying or sleeping or having my eyes closed? Look at the difference. Eyes closed, reading, pretending I'm reading something. You want to see that again? I'm assuming you can see a difference. Now, this is the kind of thing this book does. What is the difference? Here's, again, reading. I can't see myself, so I can't use the mirror to do this. Reading, eyes closed. I could try to take a picture of myself. But anyway, I'm assuming you could see a difference, and it would take an artist's eye to describe what is the difference between those two. Okay, if there's a wide crack in the stone up here, then of course there's going to be a bit of a crack going through much of the stonework. Again, this is how illustrators must think. Otherwise, you're a starving illustrator. I always say that a lot. You don't want to be a starving artist. And I'm trying to help you guys not be a starving artist. later today, I'm going back to my studio, my painting studio, probably downstairs, and work on my wedding portrait from last Saturday again, which is somewhat dismaying. All this stuff is bothering me. Let me take a minute and erase all these errant sketches that I've got. But I had to draw them for you, didn't I? So I could talk about them. Okay. So that's probably adequate. I'm going to take a picture of this with my phone, text it to my client and say, okay, here's the drawing of the snake in the cliff wall. And my client will say, yeah, that looks perfect. Or he'll say, well, I was thinking more blank, or would it work if blank, and so on and so forth, right? That's what you do as an illustrator. They tell you what they want. Okay, good enough. I'm going to pause right there. Thanks for watching.